Hey, and welcome to Codebase Alpha. This is episode 3, and in this episode we're going to try and finish off this API we're building with the authentication and authorization services all built into it. And then what we'll do after that is move on to developing an Alexa skill as part of the DevStreams project that DevChat is running on his stream. So we'll build something separately over here on Codebase Alpha, and then what we'll do is try and integrate that with a PR into the DevStreams project. We'll probably need to wait a little bit longer for the PR to be raised because DevStreams doesn't have a public API currently. So as soon as we get that done, we can start working on integrating the Alexa skill. And the idea is with the skill you'll be able to ask Alexa when is DevChat streaming next, and it will give you a verbal response. So that seems like quite a nice little addition to that project. Try and help support the Dev coding stream community and get our streams out there really. Okay, so just to pick up where we left off last time with the web API, we struggled a little bit, or rather I did, because I forgot to actually put this line into the configure method of startup. And basically what this is doing, we'd set up all our authentication and authorization up here in the configure services section of the startup class, but what I forgot to do was to actually use it down here with the app.use authentication. And I guess my only excuse for that is that we actually developed part of this on episode 1, of course, where we added the Swagger endpoints, and I just forgot about it. So we live and learn, and it's a good thing to do, to actually have to try and solve a problem like that while live, because the pressure was starting to tell when it wouldn't work. Okay, so what I'd like to do today to try and wind this up is we'll add some hashing for passwords, and we'll also store the user credentials in this case we're going to put them in the app settings.json. Obviously in a real system they would live inside a database, but we're not going to introduce a database to the project at this stage. A little later on, if we come back to this, I'll actually finish off and actually wire up a database for the authentication side of it, and also for actual data. Currently we're just returning test data, so no real data being produced about our rocket launches, which is what this API is tentatively supposed to do. So you request information about upcoming rocket launches. And that really kind of illustrates my predilection with all things space. So you probably pick up on that through the course of the episodes of Codebase Alpha, that I'm pretty much into rockets and SpaceX and all kinds of things like that. So yeah, so it's just a foible of mine. Okay, so let's just hop over to just a second. Let's go to adjust something. That's better. This microphone arm is still a little loose, so I'll just tighten a few screws up there. Okay, so I thought what we could do is hop over to our app settings.json file, and at the moment in here we have our token secret. So this is the long string of random letters and numbers for which we use to create the symmetric key for our JWT bearer token. And if you don't know anything about JWT bearer tokens, what we can do is pop an ask into the bot here. So ask, well, what are JWT bearer tokens? And hopefully the bot will come back with something useful. So there's a link there which you can follow if you wish to learn a bit more. I don't know if that's the best link, but it's a link that's come back from the bot there, from our exclamation mark ask command, which we can use to ask any question of the bot. Okay, so let's have a look. So what we need to do is start to put some user information into here. So let's create a user section, Oops, let's try spelling users, right? Users, there we go. And this is going to be, yeah, it's going to be a set of users. So what we'll do is we'll, oh, hello there, Stallpenner. Welcome to the stream. Nice to see you. Very, very welcome. We're just getting started, so we're working on the web API, and we've got authentication and authorization all working now. But what we're going to do is just to make it a bit more configurable, we're going to put our user information into the app settings.json file, just as a temporary place to keep it before at some point in the distant future we actually put it all into a database. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll key it on a username, so test user, and then test user will have a couple of properties. It'll have a password, and we'll just currently give it a temporary password at the moment, and it will also have some claims. So we'll give it some claims. And last time we defined a claim of read-only. Okay, so auth0 Bobby, welcome. I think I've seen you around on Dev Chatter and on Fritz and Friends. So very welcome to the stream. Yeah, okay. So we've got our basic structure in there: test user, our claim. Our password, which is currently just a plain text password, and our claim. So let's just pop over now to our token controller. Oh, thank you very much there for the follow, auth0 Bobby. That's very much appreciated. I'm hot on the trail of those 50 follows which I'm after for our initial follower goal. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And eventually we'll have some when we get to affiliate, we'll have some nice badges and some emotes created, but at the moment we're still hunting out that ability to actually give people those things. So very welcome to the stream, and indeed hype, thank you Stallpenner for that hype. Oh, Ace Flame series. Oh, Ancient Coder. Sorry, you're in dark blue on my screen, and I think it's black, which is quite hard to see. So, a warm welcome to Ancient Coder as well, and thank you for the follow, the offline follow. That was a nice surprise this morning when I saw that. So, thank you very much. And oh, another one. Oh, wonderful. Who's that? Now, who's that? I can't see. Cody was that? Yes, I think it's Cody. So. Thank you very much for that follow as well. So we're really kind of racking up the follows this evening. So that's wonderful. Okay, so what we want to be able to do now is actually read that information out of our configuration file. I think what we'll do there is yeah, we can use a tuple to get that information out. So let me just adjust this. Now, how's the audio, by the way? Because I'm having slight trouble with this mic arm moving away from me. So if I do go quiet. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ancient Coder. This is episode 3, so I'm starting to get used to the idea. Oh, QDY underscore. QD, thank you very much. I think it was you that followed. Thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. So how's the audio? Can I have an audio report, please, just to make sure everything's sounding okay? I'm using one of these blue mics, and it has to be very close. Oh, wonderful, thank you. Stallpenner, I did enjoy your stream, even though it was very strange coding. It was like going back in time to COBOL, so I did enjoy it. So let's have a look. Yeah, so let's define a private method to bring back our the data from our configuration. So what we want to bring back the password and the claims. So let's do it as a tuple. So we want a string which is going to be our password. It's actually going to be our hash password, but we'll call it password, pwd, and then we want an array of strings, which is going to be our claims. So let's bring those back, and then let's give this method a name. So we'll call it get. Let's anticipate the future. Get hash password and claims. And we're going to pass in a string, which is going to be the username. Okay. Oops. Let's try spelling some things correctly, shall we? Whoops. Whoops. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. String. Okay. Alright, so let's just tidy up a bit. Okay. So we have our configuration object injected in as _config. It's injected in here by the dependency injection system. Oh yes, so I do have actually a message which we can try and produce. What am I working on? So let's try that. So that's what we're working on. We're working on a web API using .NET Core 2.2, and we're including Swagger for a start. We're including authentication and authorization using JWT bearer tokens. So it's virtually trivial to create a web API using .NET Core, ASP.NET Core, but what we're trying to do is just layer those things on perhaps that aren't so obvious or aren't often used. And a secure API is really what we want. Okay, so let's get at the user data. So the user is going to be, so it's in our configuration, so we've got our configuration which has been injected, and we want to get part of that configuration. So there's a section of configuration called users, so let's get section, which is here. And what we want there is we want to do some string interpolation on that, and so it's users, and then we want the actual username, so we'll just interpolate the username into there. That's going to bring back our user object, which has got a hashed password and their claims in it. So let's get the hashed password out, even though it's not hashed at the moment, we'll assume it is. So the hash password, that is going to be our user, and we want to get a string value out of this object. So get value is what we want, and it's a string. And it's going to be called password. I think we called it password, didn't we? Let's just quickly check that we did call it password. Pretty sure that's a logical name for it. Yeah, password and claims. Okay, we'll now grab the claims as well. So user claims. It's going to be user.getValue again. Also that as a type string, and we're going to get claims from there. Okay, so what we can do here, there's a possibility that obviously that this is going to be empty or null even. So let's just pop in a quick ternary expression here then. So string dot is null or white space. So if it's not that, then we'll bring back the actual value. Okay, and we're going to do a split on comma, so people could have more than one. Yeah, the naming, yeah, stupid. I don't know. I'll change it to password for you, just to, because I guess PWD is one of these everyone knows it kind of abbreviations, but I will change that for you. So we're going to split this because we're going to have more than one claim. We're going to split it on a comma, and if we don't get one, we'll just return a new string. Oops. Okay, so let's call this password just to please store penner. There we go, password and claim. So we're actually using plain English now. Ancient Coder, you found my stream from Gareth. Yes, I love Gareth's streams. They're so different. You know, you can go and watch. You can come to my stream and watch C#. You can go anywhere really, friends and friends, dev chatter, and C#, C probably. But you can go to Gareth and see something different. So I have struggled through trying to teach myself some F#, and I've got a little way into doing that. I actually converted part of my my Slack library across to using F#. There's an awful lot to do because there's an awful lot of donkey work in writing a library like that, but I did get it actually to work. So it's a usable micro library for Slack integration, and it also did some Rust. And I must admit, I struggled with the Rust slightly, but I couldn't really quite figure what its niche was. But I believe it's systems programming, so it was interesting to see these things. So get exposed to different things. Also, he did some Xamarin stuff and stuff with something called Fabulous, which was really interesting. Okay, so let's just finish this off now. So we want to return the hashed password. And the claims. Okay. I use the claims, I called it. There we go. Okay. So let's quick check a chat. Phil Snowboard about making a method for the pattern is not empty. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, we could do that, but I'm just going to leave it for now because I'm just trying to kind of crack on and try and get this initial little mini project actually finished, at least to a state where we can kind of say that we've actually achieved the aims of the stream, which was to produce this basic API which someone can take on and develop in their own way, and move on to the Alexa skill which we're going to write, which. I was going to say it's more interesting. I guess it is more interesting, but when we start off writing the skill, it's going to be a bit kind of. I mean, I'm a data guy, so I like bits and bytes and back end stuff. I'm not really a front end developer, and so we're going to be looking at JSON and interpreting the JSON and building some C# objects from the JSON using some tools. Have I made a spelling mistake somewhere? User claims, yeah. So still better user claims. What's you trying to point something out to me? Oh, yes, you're right. You were pointing out that I put claims in there. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we've got that information in. So we've got here so yeah, this is the object we're kind of getting back from. We're being fed in when we request a token to be created. So I'm going to get rid of this claims request here because the claims aren't going to be passed in from the front end. They're going to be obviously stored within our app settings .json file. So we don't need to pass our claims in. Here we don't need that either. Okay, so when we generate our token, we want to make sure that obviously our username and password. So we're passing username and password in here. We'll fix this up in a second. Let's have a look at our is valid method here. So we want to extract the password from the app settings file and compare it with what was passed in. So we want to say we'll say hash password, and that's going to be get hash password and claims for username, and we want the password from that. Yep. So, and basically we'll do a simple if password. Let's do an equals. Just we'll be changing this hashed password. Okay, and we're gonna have an if statement here. We didn't really need a if statement, but what we'll do now, we'll just return that for now. Okay, and I've pressed that button. We'll just do that for the moment. Okay, and then for our claims, what we'll do is we'll extract the claims in a similar way. So if I just go and grab this, and these are our user claims. And there we go. So we're getting our user claims in now from our settings file. So let's pop over to our little test app. Simply a console application. Let's mess with this a bit. So let's get rid of our passing of claims in. Username SMB. So let's go and change our app settings. We add test users, so it's going to be SMB. Okay, and we'll sit in our token controller here, and we'll sit on this breakpoint here. So let's quickly check chat. Okay, some discussion going on there. So, so .NET Core Identity is coming. Yes, Ancient Coder. It's the next part. We're going to then hash the password with that, and we're not using out of the box identity because I wanted to use the bearer tokens as a way of authenticating. Just so it's slightly different. I mean, because if you use the out of the box identity, it's a bit trivial, and also it's a project that I was always interested in doing, using these tokens, and you can extend the ID. There's systems such as Identity Server 4, which also hands out security tokens. So this is just like a mini version of that, without having to add that extra software. Okay, so let's see if this falls in a heap. So let's start it up. Oh, sorry about the white there. We don't actually need it particularly, but let's now start our test client, and we should see that we log in okay. So we'll just debug that, and we've hit our breakpoint, so we've got our password. Just step through. Yep, and there we are. We have our data. So we've successfully retrieved we've created a token, retrieved that, and then we've sent that back in the authorization headers of our requests. And now that token will last us for 24 hours. And in a real client, what I imagine happening is that if it gets an invalid, an authorization issue, then it will just simply regenerate its token, store that away for the next 24 hours. Okay, so it looks like we're actually making some progress. So let's have a look at this storing of passwords. So currently we have plain text passwords. So I think what we'd like to do is to hash them. And luckily we get quite powerful and up-to-date hashing algorithms all built into .NET Core. And we're going to bring in a a package for that. So let's go to our manage NuGet packages, and we want Microsoft .ASP.NET Core .identity. Come on. ASP. Well, I'm sure that's the right name. Microsoft ASP.NET Core Identity. Let's put identity in there and let's see what we get. Identity Core, there we go. ASP.NET Identity Core. Is that the right one? I think that's the right one. Although I would have thought it should say .NET ASP.NET Core. Yes, author. Also, they're signed with a symmetric key. I can show you that in a second. Let's kind of figure out why we're not getting our. I'm just worried that that's not the right thing. So let's do it. Let's have a look at. Let's DuckDuckGo this. ASP.NET Core Identity. We want NuGet. Oh, you think it already in there? It may well be. Let's see. Let's see if it's already in the core packages. I forgot about that. Good point. So yeah, so we can check that. It now is valid. Here we can try and create a password hasher. Password hasher. And it's going to take a string. That's not sting, a string. Let's see. Oh yes, you're right. Absolutely, it's already in there. Thank you very much for that. Yep, 2.2. It's all built in, which is nice. You haven't got to. I don't know. When I first started using .NET Core, everything was a package that was brought in separately, and I kind of bought into that idea. But they seem to have gone back a bit on that, and with the app package where a lot of these things are already built in. Okay, so we've got our password hasher, and now we want to hash the password. So var so what this password hash is going to do is it's going to create a hash. It's going to go through a number of iterations. I think it's 10,000 iterations by default, and it's also going to add a random salt. So the two hashes won't actually be the same, even if you put the same password in. And this is to deal with brute force attacks and using rainbow tables. So we'll pop if someone wants to pop an ask in there about into the chat about rainbow tables or hashes, we can get some information about that into chat for people to follow. If you don't want to do it, I'll do it in a second. But let's have a look. So okay, so we're going where are we? So we're going to yes. So we want hasher, and it's going to be hash password, and we pass in a string object in this case, which is information about the user. In this instance, it's actually not used. If you actually go and have a look inside password hasher, you find that the user parameter that we're passing in here is actually not used, so it doesn't really matter what we pass in. We're going to pass in the username, and we're going to pass in obviously the password, the plain text password, so it will hash that for us. And naming is getting a bit awful here, isn't it? So we need to figure out what okay, so what we need, so we're going to get the hash password here. So this is not what we want to do. Let's just have a think about what we need to do. So I'll put this in here so we can actually get the hash for our password and stick it into the configuration file. So what we actually want to do here is to verify that the password is actually the same. So we're going to use our hasher. So so the result of our test to see if it's a correct password is going to be hasher dot, and then we want to use this verify hashed password. We have to pass in once again, in this case, a string property which is not going to be used, which is this here, this password. It's a string because we defined it to be a string up here in this type definition here. And after that, we're going to pass in the hashed password. So hash password, and then the plain text password. Okay, and that's going to give us back. It's going to give us back a password verification result. So what we can do is here we can return result equals password. That's enum password verification result of success. However, if I just back up that, here you can see that there's three possible results from this. As failed, obviously it didn't match. As success, and there's success with a rehash needed. Okay, Stoolpenner, you lurk away. That's no problem. If you want to chime in at any point, just do so. I'm sure I'll make loads of mistakes, so keep an eye out and make sure I'm not going too far off the beaten track here. Okay, so yeah, so as I say, we got this this third result, which is success rehash needed. And if we look at the help for that, I don't know if you can read it. It's very small on the stream. I know it says that the password verification was successful, but the password is encoded using a deprecated algorithm and should be rehashed and updated. So that sounds quite an important thing that we should know about. So I think what we'll do here, we'll say if the result is that password verification result of success rehash needed, then what we'll do is we'll set the result to be password reset result dot success, but what we'll do is we'll log the fact that we've got a so we need to bring Serilog in here. So let's bring Serilog in. So we're using Serilog for our login solution. In full framework I've always used nlog, but ever since moving over to using .NET Core, I've started to favour Serilog, and I like it. So we'll put out a warning into the logs, and we'll say that username's password was hashed using a deprecated algorithm. Update it. Okay, so just a thing to note, that when you're using the built-in password hasher, you do get this third result, and it's certainly worth logging the fact that you've got this success, but it's an old algorithm, so we're going to make sure that we ask people to go back in and redo their password, basically update their password. So we could actually return information. We could return information back to the user or to the client. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna pop a breakpoint in here. We're going to run our program, and we've got password as our default password. We're going to just find out what that is when it's hashed. So let's run our program. Okay, up it goes. Let's close that off. And now we can run our test client. And here we find our hashed value here. So let's grab that. Now hopefully we've grabbed the whole string. Yeah, it looks like we have. And what we can do is to pop that into our app settings file. So now our password is going to be, rather than just the plain text, we're going to have our hashed password in there. Okay, so let's pop back to the controller. We no longer need this, but what we'll do is just comment it out. Oops, so that's the wrong bit. It's the hashed value here. We'll just comment that out for a second. I'll leave that code in, so when we push it up to GitHub, then you'll have that there. Okay, well let's run it up and see what happens. We've got a breakpoint where we're testing the validity of the password. Let's run it again. Okay, so we should be in a position to run that test client now. There we go. Now we've hit here, so let's just step through, and it's valid. So we've managed to validate our password, and we get our data back, which is nice. Okay, so we've got password hashing, we've got claims, and we've got a bearer token which is passed around. So I think there were some people in chat who hadn't seen the whole of the project, so let's just quickly run through some of the parts of the project which we haven't concentrated on this stream. So I'll just start it up. We've got Swagger on here, so if we go to the Swagger endpoint, which is simply the Swagger URL there, then you can see that the API offers two endpoints. The first is a get endpoint, where we pass in an ID to the API launch endpoint, and we're going to get a model back, which is going to be JSON. We defined it as being JSON within some of the decorations within the controller. This is what it's going to look like. Basically, it's going to give you an ID, the rocket that's being launched, the launch provider, SpaceX or ULA, the mission, and the date. So it's just trivial data. I do have a database with some actual data in it, which we can wire up at some point, but that wasn't really the actual the goal of the stream, to actually wire up real data. We've got that, and we've also got our token endpoint where we post in the username and password. It's an object which not really defining what it is here, so it's not really obvious that we're passing username and password, but that's what we are. And we're going to get either a success or a bad request out of that. Okay, so let's pop back here. So that's the endpoint. So when you want to request a new token, you simply call the token endpoint with a username and password in the body of the request. So here we call the create endpoint, and you can see it's the root is token simply /token, and the user object is a JSON object which is living in the body of the request. We extract that here as a dictionary, and we pull out the username and password which are inside that. Make sure they're valid. If they are valid, then we can call generate token. And what generate token will do is I'll add a couple of standard claims, so the name of the user, their role as a client, and it will also set up a not before date of now and an expiry date of 1 day's time. So they're all defined in seconds in Unix time. And as we added today, we added our custom claims. So here the claims that are coming from the appsettings.json file, and we are adding those into the claims. So there could be any number of claims which are added in, and once we've done that, then we build the token, which is signed here with our random key. This is the random key which we just went onto the internet to find a website which would create us a long string of random letters and numbers, and that's the key we obtained. So that will actually sign the token. We add the payload, which is the claims, and we build a token. We write the token out, and we can actually see that happening. If we go over to this, what I'll do is make this slightly larger so it can be seen a bit easier. If we go to here, we can try this out, and we can type in a username, SMB, and a password. A wonderfully secure test password, simply password. And if we execute that, then you can see in the response body we get our JWT signed bearer token here, which is what we're extracting. So at that point, we've got a token. Our test client, which we've got over here, simple console client, is grabbing hold of that token, and it is putting in the authorization request headers here as a bearer token, and then we call our API, and we can imagine us calling lots of different API endpoints with our read-only access, and we will get results. So what we can do is start to segment our API. We can say that we have claims where we can access certain endpoints and not others. So for example, we might have a claim which was to access the launch endpoint, which is this one here. Currently we have a policy on here of read-only, but we could actually say that this is a launch read-only policy, but we might have higher or no authority to actually access other endpoints. The way these policies work is over in the startup method over here in the configure services, where we configure our authentication to bearer tokens, which is this part here. We add our authorization here, and we can add these authorization policies. So you can see we've got two policies defined as an admin policy, which we're not currently using, which we could use, for example, for updates or adding data to our database through the API. Okay, so if I just let you know where this code is going to live. So we have a GitHub, which I've just posted into chat. This is where my public repository is. So up there's a few repos up there. There's the bot, which we've got running in chat at the moment. That's up there. And I do want to do some work on the bot on stream, but I don't want to do that too soon, because the idea of these streams is to try and to be beginner friendly. Really, it's not really intended as a learn to code stream, but just to tackle some subjects that a beginner might come across. They can code. They know how to code C#, but they want an API which got authorization and authentication on it, or they want to do an Alexa skill, which is the next project we're going to work on. So those are the really ideas. So we're going to probably do some D365 as well at some point, some simple plugins, so just so you know how to start up on these kind of subjects. And if anyone's got any ideas of what kind of topics they'd like me to cover, do post them on our Discord. So we have a Discord, which I post into chat at the moment. There we go. So that's our Discord. Do pop over there and say hello. There's quite a few people joined already. Obviously it's not a high throughput site yet, but hopefully as we kind of build up the streams, we'll have more and more to talk about over there. And I'm always kind of keeping an eye on that, and also I'm a moderator on DevChatter's stream and his Discord as well. So I'm keep a close eye on what goes on Discord, and do try to respond and point people in the right direction or help them if I can. I'm not very good on social media. I did actually man up and create a Twitter account. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's that's the Codebase Alpha Twitter's there. Yeah. So once again, as I say, I'm not big on social media. I haven't used it an awful lot. I actually got burnt a few years ago when I did have a Facebook account and it got hacked. So it kind of put me off. But I did think I'd create a Twitter account for that. We're also we're expanding into YouTube as well now. So I do have a YouTube channel where I archive these Codebase Alpha videos too. So the videos will be available from Twitch for, I think it's 14 days while I'm not an affiliate. I think it goes up a bit further once we actually manage to achieve affiliate status, but I am uploading the videos to YouTube at that location, so that they're available for people later on, assuming that Codebase Alpha is a long-lived stream. I really hope it will be, and plan it to be, that those early streams will be up there with all the embarrassing kind of parts to it, where I got clipping and bad audio and the music wasn't working properly and all kinds of things. So right, I think looking at the time, I was doing this was going to be a mini stream today, so I'm going to be stopping fairly soon. But what I would like to advertise is that on Thursday, and it will be in the evening UK time, we are going to start work on our Alexa skill. And in case people didn't catch what that project is, I don't know if you know Brendan over at DevChatter, but he's building a community website where dev streamers are going to be able to set up their schedule, their streaming schedule, so that people can log into the site and find out when their favourite streamers stream, or maybe discover some new streamers they don't know about. It's to see where kind of schedules clash as well. So as streamers, we can try and set up our schedules so that they don't overlap too much with other people. And it's also a kind of way of discovering and supporting coding streamers, really. So what I put in an issue, I think it was last night, but I've been thinking about it for a while, which is to create an Alexa skill that will link into a public API yet to be created on that DevStreams website, as it's called, so that people can say, hey Alexa, ask DevStreams when DevChatter is streaming next, or what is Gareth Hubble's streaming schedule, or when will Gareth Hubble stream in December. And hopefully it's going to come back and give us some nice verbal responses. And there's quite a lot of kind of things to learn about there, especially about kind of how we actually get it to respond in terms of, if someone asks when is Gareth Hubble going to stream in December, how we actually get it to say what that is. hopefully the database that's being built up in the DevStream system will give us all the information we need, but actually coming back in a kind of reasonable response would be an interesting thing to attempt to do. We could also give it a go. We're looking at responding in German. I think it just supports English and German at the moment. I'm not sure about time zones, so how we tell what time zone a user is in, or a person who's speaking to their echo. So that's something we might have to respond in UTC and East initially, and then figure out how we can actually translate that into their local time, if that's at all possible. Okay, so that's the plan. We'll start that work on Thursday, and we're going to start at a fairly low level, because that's what I tend to like to do, by building up the JSON and building up the C# model with the JSON. We're going to look at the request and the response, and then what we'll do is try to kind of move that on and start to build up the actual skill. So we'll go on to Amazon Web Services Lecture Skill Kit and have a look at what we need to do there. And it's going to be a discovering kind of learning exercise for me and for everyone who's involved on the stream, who joins us. I do hope you will. If you've created a Alexa skill before, please do come along and point me in the right direction when I go quiet and start thinking about what we do next. I'm pretty sure there's quite a lot of documentation, so I'm hoping it's going to be relatively easy to keep up on it and make sure we get a good skill, at least to start off, so we can get something we can test. Okay, I'm going to close the stream. I've been very, very gratified by the follows that came through today. Thank you very much for those follows. I think we hit 12 viewers at one point, so that's really good. Especially for people starting out on these streams, it's quite a nerve-wracking thing to do, and I've been very, very buoyed up by the response people have given me. So thank you again. And what I'm going to do now is close the stream down. I may stream again before Thursday, but the next scheduled stream is Thursday, and eventually I will fall into a actual pattern. But at the moment it's difficult to actually have a regular schedule, so it's a bit ad hoc. So do excuse me while I work out the scheduling. We're also, you notice, we're working without a webcam. This is mainly because I don't have one, but also I don't have sufficient lighting, and I'm also in my front room streaming from my home computer, and there's kind of washing in the background. I've got my wife and my granddaughter running around sometimes, so I have to kind of pick and choose to make sure we have quiet time when they're not around to actually do the streaming. Okay, so thank you for everyone who's watched. It's been a relatively short stream today. I'm just trying to finishing this project off before we start the next one, the Alexa skill. So good evening everyone, good day or good morning wherever you are in the world, and I will see you soon.